This is Shel from Paintbrush Studio. I have a mixed media art journal page to share with you today. This is my small Dylusions journal that I started daily life project with last year. So I'm giving you a quick flip through of how much of it I got done. Round about the beginning of May, I completely stopped working in this journal and doing daily life project. I'm not sure why. I wasn't mad or anything. I think it's actually this very last one is unfinished and I didn't like it and I couldn't finish it. And so I just stopped and I never really started back up again. So I'm using this journal for the Color Me Positive group, which is having prompts this year, and I'm going to give that a try and see if I can finish up the journal this year. So that's what I'm doing. Is the very first week of Color Me Positive, there's a Facebook group that you can join, and they're going to have prompts all year once a week. So I'll probably be posting most of those unless I really hate the pages or I don't get them done or I stop doing them. I don't know. Anyway, it's a good reason to share a page with you. So I am starting out with the Dylusions paints. I've had these and I have hardly even used them and I forgot about them. And then I saw them the other day on my cart and I'm like, I need to use those. They have such bright, vibrant colors. So I decided to start out with that. I knew that the prompt was gratitude and that there was a quote associated, but I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do on this page. Sometimes I have kind of a general plan. In fact, most of the time I do have a general plan when I start. I didn't have a plan. I had no plan. I didn't know what I wanted to put on it. And so I just figured I'd get out, these fun bright paints and smush them around on the page and see how it looked. I started out with cool colors and I was going to add a warm color, but I changed my mind and got out this Postbox blue and added it as my third color. Probably mostly because I didn't want to try to blend in that pink, even though it works really well usually with the teal color. But I just didn't. So this is my background and I'm having fun. I've got a cosmetic sponge. I'm squishing paint, blending it, adding back in, blending it again, trying to get all those hard lines to go away in between the colors. And then I'm of course going to dry it, which I'm going to cut out. That should be coming pretty soon. I'm going to cut out that drying. You don't need to see me dry a page with the heat tool. That's boring. So the next step I did, because I still didn't know what I was doing, was to do some stamping. This is a Stampin' Up set. It's old. I doubt it's available anymore. It might be. Who knows? I don't really know what they have anymore. But it kind of looks like old-fashioned stenciling like you'd see on a crate or something. I think it's kind of cool. So I've kept it all these years. And I'm stamping the word gratitude because that's the prompt. I figured that's a good place to go because I still didn't know what I was going to do. So that was all good. This is Archival ink. And then I decided I wanted more design in the background, which should have been done before I did the stamping. That would have been smart. But you just never know what's going to happen. So I got out this is a different green. I thought I was getting the same green, but this is a bit less yellow green. Still in the Dylusions though. And I wanted to make a tint. I wanted it to be lighter. And so I'm mixing it. First I started out with gesso, but my gesso bottle is still empty. Still haven't gotten a new one. So then I added white acrylic paint to create a lighter tint of this color. And of course, as I'm stenciling, I'm going over those stupid stamping letters, and so now I'm going to have to fix them. But hey, these things happen when you don't know what you're doing. It's not too bad. I didn't really squish the paint over them. It just kind of hit it a little bit with the bristles. This is a stencil brush. I don't always use a stencil brush for stenciling, but it actually worked really great because these are kind of a thicker paint. Then I printed out the quote that they had the little graphic with a picture of a flower and this quote as part of the prompt. and I liked the quote, so I decided to put it on. So I printed it and clipped it apart, which I cut out because you don't need to see me cutting paper either. Boring. But you can see I cut it into strips and I'm sticking it on. This is the matte liquid medium from Liquitex that I'm using, which also, that bottle's about empty. I need to go shopping. So I've got those stuck down and I'm like, oh, okay, gotta go fix those letters that I got paint over. This is a new toy that I have. It's a, you guys have probably heard of the food ball pins. This is a food brush pin. It has a synthetic brush on the end, kind of like those Zig True Color pins or the ones that I have from Japan that I use, which you've probably seen in a different video if you've been watching my videos. Just like, it's like the water barrel brushes, only it's full already with color. Now I decided I want to add some journaling, but I don't want anybody to be able to see it. It's just for me. It's private. I don't want anyone that looks at my book to say, oh, let's read this. And this is just about what I'm grateful for in the last year. And I wrote it with a Wink of Stella pen, which is clear ink with a glitter, like a very fine glitter in it. So it's, you can see it on the page, but you can't really read it. It's just exactly what I wanted, was just me to be able to write down some thoughts without it becoming really a part of the page. And then I decided, yeah, I need a focal point. What am I going to do? So I tried to think in my head, what does gratitude look like? What, you know, what kind of image would represent that? And at first I thought a heart because, you know, that seems like a thankful heart, a thankful, you know what I'm saying? A heart seemed like a good idea, but that was too plain. So then I came up with an idea of drawing a person with their hands over their heart and kind of looking down, contemplative person. And when you put your hands over your heart, you're putting them over your heart chakra, which is kind of, I don't know, it seems like a universal position of someone who's thinking about gratitude, who's like saying thank you. Even in American Sign Language, you use one hand on your heart and then you put it out to say thank you, or sometimes it's on your mouth, but in that same general area. So I thought that would be good. So here I am sketching my girl. I cut out a piece of mixed media paper to use because it's a little bit thicker, and I was gonna, I didn't want to draw directly on the page because you can see how fussy I am when I sketch. I mean, I erase, I go back, I go forward, go back, put it on, put it off. It's the process. And so I wanted to do it on a separate page and then collage it on. Also, I didn't want to have to do gesso, you know, draw it and then do gesso and then color it. So I got my piece of mixed media paper and I was sketching it on there with my soft graphite. And then I'm going to cut it out. You can see me doing that real quick. Fastest cutting ever. And then I lay it on my page, and dang it, it's too small. So instead of redrawing it, which was my first inclination, I took it to my scanner and I scanned it because I have one of those printer scanner fax all-in-one things. And so I scanned it and just printed it larger. And then I thought to myself, that's so smart. I'm sure everyone does that, but that's the first time I've ever done it. And I thought I was so smart. So unfortunately, I was too lazy to cut a piece of Canson mixed media paper the right size. And so this is just printer paper, which isn't as good. It would have been better if there was a thicker paper that I collaged on here instead of just thin printing paper. But, you know, these things happen. So on one side, it's a little bit on the see-through side, but not too bad. And I cut off the bottom because it was even just a little bit too big, but it actually is perfect. It's perfect size. So that was how I got around my drawing too small thing. was pretty proud of myself. I'm sure you guys are all laughing at me right now. What a silly girl. And then I'm going to end up heat drying this, which I'm going to probably be cutting soon, very soon, I'm sure. Oh yes, I wanted to put a coat over the whole thing, I decided. Because if the coat was over just the edges, then when I went to put color on, it wouldn't have worked right. I would have had two different surfaces. So I coated the whole thing with liquid matte medium. And then I dried it. And now I've got out my Neocolor II water-soluble crayons, and I'm going to color my girl. And I'm going to leave in all this footage, even though some people might just fast forward through it, and that's fine if you do. I will not be offended. I think on average, even though most of my videos are about 30 minutes, which is condensing them, believe me. This project took 2 hours by the time I fussed and went and printed things and the whole thing. So I understand that you don't want to watch the whole thing, but if somebody does, they might want to see the coloring process. So I'm leaving it in and just speeding through it. And it's just basically adding different colors of this water-soluble crayon. And I'm using a water barrel brush, which has water coming out the bristles. And then I also have some white acrylic paint. And I mix the white paint in with the water, so it's kind of a diluted acrylic. And then I use that to activate my color. So I actually do color right onto the picture with my crayons, which some people take the color off the crayon by using some type of a wet brush and touching it to the tip. I don't usually do that. I just color right onto it, and then I blend it with this mixture of acrylic paint and water. And that's how I prefer to use them. These are one of my favorites. If I had to go to a deserted island and could only take a couple art products, this would be one, and then my jelly plate and some acrylic paint would be another, and my Posca pens, white and black. Probably with those three things I could live. Maybe I might need an Archival ink pad. I don't know. But anyway, we're very off topic. So I start in with the lighter color, and then I go in and activate blend with my painty water. Then I add another color that's a little bit darker and do the same thing. And I kind of skip, like I'll do the face and then let that dry while I'm doing the hair or the shirt, and kind of move around. I don't overwork any particular spot. I just jump around from one to another so that they have a little time to dry. Also, this is sealed, of course, because I use the matte medium over it. So it's the water painty pigment mixture is not really soaking in at all, which I would prefer that it soaked in. But it's kind of irritating me a little bit because the color's sliding around on top of that matte medium a little bit. But I'm living with it because I didn't want to redraw. Next time if I print out something, I will probably just cut my mixed media paper into 8.5 by 11 and just run that right through the printer instead of the lighter paper. But you live and you learn. So I think in a second I'm going to speed this up to even faster. But you get the idea. Layers of color. Back and forth. Darker, darker, darker. And then sometimes I add back in a highlight using just the plain white paint with my little water barrel brush. And I think at the end I get out a fine tip regular brush. I think we're going at 8 times speed now. I'm the fastest coloring person in the world. Probably time to play music. this point, I've decided to come in with some pencil again to redefine my features and everything. And I probably could have done this with a watercolor pencil or something like that, but I just used my regular gray graphite. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I do other things. Also, I'm adding some fingernails and some little details that weren't there before, and darkening everything up. So that works out pretty well. And then I'll probably come back in with some color again, I think. Yeah, now for the pinks and the reds to warm up the skin tone. Just kind of blending that with my finger at this point. This is where we get into what I call fussing, which is where I just keep adding things, and I could do it forever. I've got a little bit of white there with my small brush. I think I'm probably going to come back in again with something else, who knows, but it's what I call fussing. It's, if this was a real painting, I would fuss for a couple days and it would be much more detailed. But this is an art journal. I'm supposed to be getting this done within a reasonable amount of time and not spending 2 days adding and subtracting and adding and subtracting and adding and subtracting. So, yep, there's the pencil again. I think we're almost done though. No, no, we're not. We've got to get the ochre crayon out and do some darkening. And the pencil again. I hope everyone's enjoying this fussing. It amuses me anyway. Okay, now I'm finally done with the image pretty much, and I'm using my Stabilo All pencil to add the shadows. And this really helps the pasted on image blend into the background. It's amazing what a change it is once you do this. I don't know why. It's just something with our eyes and our perception. I'm also doing that around the words that I've collaged on as well. Just on two sides to give it kind of a drop shadow effect. But it also helps to blend into the page. And then I decide that the girl needs a little bit of a darker black as well, so I just add it in places and blend it, because it still looked paste on with that black line around just the edge. That wasn't working for me. So, and I think that's because I didn't use any true black on her at all. I used the graphite to bring out some illustrative type looks, and it's gray, not black, so that's why I felt like I needed to add in the black. So then I decide maybe my letters need a little bit of touch up to make them stand out more, so I'm using my white Posca pen to bring those out by drawing around them, and then I end up going around the letters on the inside too, which makes them not as precise as they should be, because they're supposed to look like those old-fashioned stencil type things that you would put on like a wooden crate that you were shipping or something, and me drawing over it makes it less precise, but it works. It makes it stand out from the page more, which is what I wanted. And then at this point, in between here, there was this big long pause where I'm like, I have this big blank spot in the middle and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Finally, I figured out that I was going to do some stamping with a flower that is similar to the one that was in the little graphic that we got as the prompt. There was kind of like a daisy type flower on there, and this is a similar look. So I decided it was appropriate, and I'm just going to use my small round paintbrush to color in with the Dylusions paints, the yellow and the pink. That one's called Bubble Gum Pink, which makes me laugh. And I start putting the pink on, and then at some point I decide that I need to blend it with white, and so I use the white acrylic on my palette to just kind of highlight, and it looks a lot better. There we go. That's when I figure it out. So I have to go back to the other two. Makes them stand out a little bit more because the page is pretty dark with all the blue and everything. I mean, it's not dark really because it's really bright colors, but you know what I mean. It's intense. So that little white highlight on the flowers makes a big difference. I decided to add a highlight onto the yellow too, on the little centers. And then of course my flowers can't just be floating. I don't like things that float in the middle of nothing. So I add stems and a few little leaves with a food ball pen. And then I color in the leaves with this same limey green color that was in the background. And then while I'm waiting for that to dry so I can add a few highlights, I use a date stamp real quick. And right now I'm changing the date from the last time it was used, which I had to change a lot of things since it was in 2015. And then I just go in with my white Posca pen and add some highlights and, you know, kind of scribbly and little dots because the stamp has a lot of little dots around the flowers. So I highlight those. And then the page will be done. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, comment, all those things. That helps YouTube know that you want to see more videos from me, so that's really helpful. And then of course here's your close-ups. And I figured out how to do this pan and zoom thing, which is pretty cool. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.